Displaying and analyzing data. Collecting data. Data can be collected two ways. The first way is through an observational study, and that is where variables are observed or outcomes are measured, but no attempt is made to control variables or affect outcomes. An experimental study is when the researcher controls variables in order to determine their effect. Displaying data. Data can be displayed using a dot plot, which is a data display that represents data values as dots over a number line. And this is best used when you have a small amount of data. The second display is a histogram, and this is a data display that uses bars to show how frequently data occur within certain ranges or intervals. And this can be used when you have a large amount of data. Data distributions. First, we have a normal distribution. With a normal distribution, the data has one clear peak in the center. Other data points are spread equally on both sides of the peak. And it's also known as a bell curve or a symmetric distribution. So this is what that would look like. A skewed distribution. Data also has one clear peak. Most or all of the data are concentrated on one side of the peak. It has a tail, and it can be skewed left or right. So this is what that would look like. We see that majority of the data is on one side, and then we have a tail on the other side. This would be considered skewed left. So you name it based off of where the tail is located. Because the tail is on the left, it's a skewed left. A bimodal distribution. The data has two clear peaks. And lastly, a uniform distribution. Data is equally spread across the range of the data set, and there are no clear peaks. Examples. Example 1. The list below shows how many points Karina scored in each of 16 basketball games. Make a dot plot of Karina's points. So in order to make a dot plot, we must first make a number line. And the number line needs to be able to include all of the numbers. So I see that my biggest number is 10, so I'm just going to count 1 to 10. Next, what we're going to do, we're simply going to use a dot to represent each data point. So here's the number 8. So I'm going to put a dot above the number 8. 3 and 3. 9. 4. 7. 10. 4. 5, 9, 5, 7, 6, 8, 10, and 6. And you have completed your dot plot. Now, just looking at this, we could say that this was definitely a uniform distribution. Do we see that there are no clear peaks? Example 2. Leanne is on Karina's team. The list below shows how many points Leanne scored in the same 16 basketball games. Make a dot plot for Leanne's points. So looking at our data points, it looks like our biggest number is 14, and our smallest number is 5. So I'll just go from 5 to 14. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. All right, so now we just put a dot to represent each data point. So 13, 14, 9, 12, 13, 13, 14, 10, 9, 12, 6, 5, 7, 11, 10, and 8. Example 3. The chairman of a company asked his chief financial officer to track the closing prices of the company's stock over 20 trading days. The stock prices in dollars are listed below. Create a histogram for the stock price data. Now, in order to create a histogram, we must first create a frequency table. So let's do that first. So the frequency table is going to include your interval. Now, the intervals will always be provided by me. You won't have to come up with your own intervals. So for our intervals, we're using 25 to 25.49, 25.99, uh-oh. Okay, so these are the intervals that we will be using. And again, those will always be provided. Don't worry about having to come up with them. The next, you will have tally, and then finally your frequency. Okay, so what we're going to do is go through each of these points and pretty much see where they would fall and what interval they would fall. So 26.70 would fall here. So we'll put a tally mark there to represent that. 26.50 would also fall there. 26.90 also. 26.70. 26.60. 25.50. 25.10. 25.30. 25.10. 26.50, 27.40, 26.60, 26.80, 26.70, 26.70, 27.6, 27.4, 27.8, 27.60, and 27.90. Okay, so now we have our tallies, and now we'll just write the frequencies. How many tally marks do we have? This is 3, 1, 0, 10, 2, and 4. All right, now that we have this, we can create our histogram. So the histogram is pretty much like a bar graph, except you don't have spaces in between each bar. So along this bottom, which is the x-axis, we will have our intervals. So let's go ahead and list those again. Okay, So now we have our intervals listed, and I like to put marks in between so I know where my bars start and end. And then along this side is where your frequencies go. So let's look back at our table and look at our frequencies. Our smallest is 0, our biggest is 10. So let's go from 0 to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Uh-oh. All right. So now we're going to go ahead and create our bars. So the frequency for this interval was 3. The frequency for the next interval was 1. The next interval was 0. So we'll just leave that blank. The frequency for the next interval was 10. The next interval was 2. And the last interval was 4. And here you have created a histogram.